Welcome to We Need to Talk, where we make difficult conversations a little easier. On today's show, we're talking about the sandwich generation. Are you stuck in the middle of caring for your aging parents and raising your kids? Then you're part of the sandwich generation. There are different definitions, but being sandwiched by opposing demands is at the center of all of them. You probably feel guilty that you can't get everything done and you can't be everywhere at once. You're frustrated because your partner is picking up all the slack, or you hope, and your kids, well, they're sure that you understand. You're sure they understand that your priority needs to be with grandma and grandpa. They'll be okay, right? Caregivers often feel alone, isolated, and inadequate, but nobody should feel like that, especially when they're just trying to help. Some people in the sandwich generation don't even know they're in it. They're just managing the family. It's their job. If you know someone like this, it might be a good time to step in and offer some support. Work-life balance has just become that much more difficult. You have emotional, financial, and legal decisions to make. So where do you turn? As always, we've got some great guests to help us have that conversation. Today we have Brian McMurder, local lawyer, and we have Randy Falinsky from CARP. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Randy, maybe I could ask, I'll start with you. Tell the viewers a little bit about your organization and who you are.
Well, CARP is an organization that believes in a new vision of aging for Canada. It's probably the largest not-for-profit organization for community people in Canada. There's about 300,000 Canadians who are members of CARP. Locally in Durham region, we have about 4,000 members.
Wow.
And growing. And it used to be, you know, the Canadian Association of Retired People.
Right.
Today, there's no age limit, there's no retirement, it's an intergenerational. We have members that are 25 years old, we have members that are 104 years old. And it really covers the gamut and is really relevant to the discussion about the sandwich generation and issues that they go through and priorities that they have.
So great local support, community support.
Tremendous local support.
Excellent.
And quite frankly, supported by our business community as a not-for-profit.
That's terrific. That's great to know. Brian, how about you?
Well, I'm a lawyer and I specialize in wills and powers of attorney and real estate matters.
Yep.
Basically the things that most people need a lawyer for. There are other good lawyers who deal with other issues,
yep.
Family law and criminal law, etc. But I like to speak to the things that I know best, yep. and that I enjoy doing. My practice, I've been doing it for over 30 years now. And,
just a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
just a little bit of experience.
It gets, you do pick up a few things here and there, and I hope to be able to let people know what's available and how to help them get there.
Terrific. So let's start the conversation today. What is the sandwich generation?
Well, I'm going to jump right in. I think you described it earlier. It's any family situation, and there's some uniqueness today, but it's a family situation where it used to be the parents took after their children took after their kids, and what's happening with longevity is the middle generation, the adults between 40 and 60, 70, are now helping to care for their parents as well as having their teens, kids below them. So it's that generation in the middle that has pressures both at work, career, children, yep. And quite frankly, caring for their parents who are living a lot longer in a lot of different circumstances than they used to.
But do you think that's any different? I mean, Brian, we've always taken care of our families, right? Whether it's your kids or your parents. Has anything really changed?
I think we're just more aware of it. I think that we, you know, part of it is the longevity that was mentioned, but I think that it's more that because people work outside the home now. Maybe it was 2 generations ago, maybe the wife didn't work outside the home, so she was able to care for her parents in that household and her children and take care of the house and everything. But now we've got the added pressure of a full-time job, and not just a job, but a career where they're trying to make trying to make progress, trying to get promoted, and in the meantime, and trying to do all these other things at the same time.
Trying to be everything to everybody, right?
Everything.
It's really hard.
Everything to everybody, and there's a lot of, you know, technology has changed, healthcare has changed, people aren't just living with a medical problem, they have chronic problems, but they're living a lot longer. So
I think they're living better now, right? Like you said, the technology and that, I think.
They are living better, and it comes down to, you know, this quality of life. I think which Brian puts the pressure right back to that sandwich generation, that they really do need help to continue and keep on going. But that pressure has fallen back partially to the middle generation in supporting. As you said, all their careers up and health down.
Why do you think we need to coin a phrase this time? I mean, we love labels, right? As a society, we've got to label everything. Right? Is that just it? You know,
I think it makes people feel that I'm not alone in this. there's a, you know, that oh, if I'm not the only person, maybe there's somebody I can talk to. Maybe at least I can commiserate with my neighbor who has the same issues that I'm having, or groups that that are designed to assist.
So maybe a sense of community out of it.
Well, there's a huge sense of community. Brian mentioned a point earlier that a lot of people wait, they react to an event like a funeral, a death in the family, then they estate plan, or they financially, or now what do I do as a single person? But today, with the generations extended, we need to be much more proactive, because as you said, balancing career, children, home life, double jobs, the whole thing. And then all of a sudden they're going to have the same pressures that they had before, but they're complicated by life extended circumstances.
So what kind of challenges are the sandwich generation facing? So yes, we know there's demands on both sides, right? But if you get to a little more detailed, what are some of the very real challenges that you see when people come in?
Oh, time management is the biggest thing. Time management. Anybody who is trying to look after teenagers or people, youths who need to be driven around, for example. That's
4 of those at home. I know the feeling. 2 cars.
There you go. See, that's exactly the point. And so you have a schedule. You've got a calendar on your fridge that tells you every event in this household, and then as you look at it, you need to think, okay, how's John going to get to this place? Well, I need to get Mary over here, and maybe you share that with a partner, maybe not. And now if you add the other things, Dad's got a doctor's appointment
that
I've got to get him to, and he's got therapy.
That's right. You throw in the whole health management.
Yeah.
So it's not as simple just going to my doctor and coming home, and then you throw in the financial management, because they are living longer and they're living in different places and different requirements, and that complexity tends to fall back to, guess who, the sandwich generation.
Yeah, and some of those conversations didn't happen earlier about assets and how they're going to be deployed, I guess, if needed. And cost of really good care is kind of high sometimes, right? I mean, it's not all just going to be funded and you're going to get them in the best place.
Right.
No, that's a serious consideration, especially if you're the one who's managing the finances for the aged parent, right? And that's often the case, because not only do you have the physical care, but also now you've got the financial care. You have to deal with, what income do they have, what assets do they have they sold their house, and how do I do this? I need to make sure that their money lasts.
And I appreciate you said the financial care versus the financial burden, which is how people feel, right? It's just another weight on my shoulders.
Yeah. Can I just give you a couple of examples? There's a gentleman who's a CARP member in Brooklyn. He came to a meeting on estate planning that we had just because he needed education and needed to know, how does the health system work. This guy is 83 years old. He's caring for his mother at home with his wife, who's 104.
My goodness.
So you think the sandwich generation is not just here. He's got this complexity of he and his wife, and they're healthy, but at some point they're going to need the same help. So their kids are involved, their grandkids are involved.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because it's everybody stuck in it, right? Because you tend to hear sandwich generation being just the boomers.
Right.
Right, and this is what's causing it probably to be labeled. But it's not. It's anybody that's stuck in the middle, right? And the older you get, you can have the children, and the children coming back from divorce or education, and they're coming back, or they're coming back with their children, and you've got a whole list of people that you're now caring for, right, in your home.
I'm going to add one to the bottom. A different seminar. It's called Elder Care in the Sandwich Generation. Another 100 people just wanting knowledge. And a 30-year-old financial planner brought his wife in, married, they're 30 years old, and he brought his mom in, who's 60. She's got early Alzheimer's. Now, he's also got a grandmother who's fine. So his grandmother's fine. It's a different look at the sandwich generation.
Different dynamics, yep.
So here's this 30-year-old taking charge of what needs to be done, really focused on his parents, but he's also got the complexity of 3 generations. That's a 30-year-old.
Yep.
So he's learning quickly.
Yep. And you've got more challenges if your parents don't live close, or your brothers or sisters, and your support system doesn't live close, or you have to do the traveling and the expense and the planning for that, right?
Right.
So lots of different things for us to consider in the sandwich generation.
That's often the case too, that one child ends up doing the bulk of the care for the children.
Yeah.
A woman.
I'm going to break on that point, Randy. I'm going to break. After the break, we'll continue to talk about the challenges of facing the sandwich generation, not just for us women. How we can help you overcome it. You want to join the conversation? Connect with us via Facebook or Twitter. We'll be right back. Thanks for coming back to join us on We Need to Talk. We're continuing our conversation today about the sandwich generation, being stuck in the middle. So I want to just quickly touch base on what you said when we were going out to break about the women being the caregivers. I realize that number is higher than the men, but I have to say, mediator, I'm always the neutral party. If I'm taking care of things outside the home, there's somebody back at home that is taking care of it. So I think they're just as much the caregivers, just probably in a different way. My 2 cents for today. Brian, can I ask you to start telling the viewers a little bit about legally what do people need to know that are in this situation?
Well, people in basically in all situations need to make sure that their plans are in place so that it makes it easier for those who are going to be giving them care to do that job.
Okay.
And the way we do that is we do powers of attorney, which is when you give someone the authority to speak for you in the event you can't speak for yourself because of an illness or an injury. And then a will. Power of attorney, of course, covers the time period from when you become ill
right.
till you pass, and then the will kicks in from there. So it's important that you choose somebody who there's 2 types, I'm sorry, I should explain. There are 2 types of powers of attorney.
Okay.
One is a power of attorney for property, and that includes all property, includes real estate and cars and investments and everything. So basically you're giving someone to pay your bills, to make sure that all your checks are coming in and being deposited and allowing them to do that. The second one is for a power of attorney for personal care. And that's the one a doctor or a hospital would look for.
Okay.
It's important then because, and you need to have that conversation, that awkward conversation where you tell your children, your adult children, what your wishes are.
And they may not like it.
They won't want to have the conversation at all because nobody wants to talk to their parents about them going away.
Of course.
Right? So it's really hard. But you only have to have it once.
Yeah.
Tell them that it is my wish that there be extraordinary measures taken, or it's not my wish that there be extraordinary measures taken. Whatever your wishes are, if you have religious beliefs, you make sure that everyone knows it, that's all. Okay. Just have it once. And in that way, what you're doing is you're taking away that burden from them, because now the child sits there and says, I'm not making the decision for mom. Mom's made the decision, I'm just implementing it.
Work. So do you see people, because I know CARP does a lot of workshops, do you see people struggling with how to have that conversation? Either it's the parent starting the conversation or the children saying, Mom and Dad, we need to have this conversation.
It's probably the key word is having the conversation, starting the conversation. So what Brian just described is bang on. It's what we need to put in place. Yeah. But people fear having that conversation. So what we try to do is host and facilitate community meetings to get educated, to find out what it is they need, and then to point them and have some good authors in or speakers that will encourage them to have that conversation and how to have that conversation. So that, Brian, I think that, that first step at home is if somebody starts the conversation, then all of these tools become absolutely incredibly valuable.
And maybe the family can do some planning together if they're not in place, right? Would you see people coming in with? It
often happens that way. Somehow they've made a decision that mom needs to do a power of attorney, so that the adult child, who is now mom's driver, as part of her caregiving thing, brings her to the office. So I will take mom into my office alone. Right. I have to make sure that she understands the nature of the document that we're preparing, that she understands what happens, the ramifications of it. And once we do that, then I take the instructions and then I'll prepare, and they'll sign at the next visit. Okay. But also while they're there, oftentimes the 40-year-old child,
the adult child,
comes in and says, I don't have a will either, and I've got children, and I've got children who are not old enough to care for themselves, and if something, then we start having that conversation. So if you do a will, then you have the opportunity to say who you would want to care for your children if you weren't here to do so yourself.
So that sandwich generation is kind of triggering, maybe we're going to be better at doing that proactive planning that we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. I think that's what has to happen. I think an older generation let things happen when an event occurred.